What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Formula America podcast. We're your hosts, Kurt and Dylan, and we have a lot to talk about with this weekend's Austrian Grand Prix, which, oh my God, I've rewatched the ending so many times right now. It is ridiculous.
It's got to be one of the best endings of the season so far. Like,
it's for a long time, even more than just this season, man. I think this race weekend with everything going on, the whole sprint, everything, all of that, for me, came down to these last 20 laps yesterday, which, my God, it's getting spicy, man. It's heating up.
We got friendships that are deteriorating over this, apparently.
Right in front of our eyes. And the crazy thing is it really goes to show, man, you can be friends as long as you want, but if you want to be champion, that friendship's going to have to suffer. You're going to have to choose at some point. You want to be a friend or do you want to be a champion and a winner?
It's lonely at the top.
It is. It is lonely at the top. And right now we see a challenger coming in and vying for that number one spot that Max Verstappen has held for so long. And I think we got to see Max getting put under pressure like he hasn't felt for a long time.
And we saw the Max of old. You know, I've seen a ton of articles about, oh, Max hasn't matured. Max hasn't changed. Max's reputation's on the line. Max's reputation has always been what it is. He is the K-Mag out front. Like, he does not give up. He wants to win. I thought it was hilarious. One of the Sky Sports commentators was talking to him after the race and was like, you're winning the championship. Why didn't you just let him by? He was like, what a dumb question. Like, what? I'm here to win. Why don't I just stay home then? I'm already winning the championship. Might as well not even be here. Like, that's a dumb question. I'm here to win. And it's like, yes, sure. I totally agree with that.
Man, it's for me, it really, like you said, you got to see the Max of old, and it really goes back to almost that 2021 battle, like not just Abu Dhabi, but the entire season. It was Max and Lewis going blow for blow. And I think that we might be starting to get into that realm now because that McLaren's quick. It's been getting quicker. And so Max and Lando are going to find themselves on the same piece of track a lot from here on out for the rest of the season. And I really think now that Lando, over the past couple races, we got to see last time in Spain, you know, he got up there, and I think it was in Spain where he got up there and he just wasn't aggressive enough. Max was able to take the lead. Well, George took the lead at the start of the race, but then, you know, Max got in front of Lando. And really, because Lando you got to see that mutual respect, right? He's always respected him as a friend, but now he's starting to realize that Max, he might be a friend, but he's cutthroat and he is going to do what it takes to get ahead of you. Exactly. And I think Lando now is starting to realize that. And as we saw over the course of the weekend, Lando was a little bit more aggressive in the sprint, but still not aggressive enough. And I think he really realized yesterday in the race that, hey, man, if I want this, we're going to have to go to blows. And, you know, that friendship's going to have to be put on the back burner. And, man, I'm so excited for what's to come because it is definitely heating up now.
You know, the funny thing, I think that Lando blew, and understandably, like, I get it, there's a lot of emotions, but I think Lando really blew this incident out of proportion. There was great hard racing the whole time, and I think that Lando had some pretty dangerous moves. That one dive bomb down the inside, if Max hadn't seen him come in and turned, it would have just crashed both of them badly, and they were both racing really hard, and touching wheels is common. When you are racing hard, you're going wheel to wheel, the wheels sometimes touch. It was very unlucky that this ended in a puncture for both of them, but it's not like they slammed into each other. I don't even, like, Max kind of drifted to the outside, but Lando wasn't even on the grass. Like, there was still a full car's width there when they turned, touch wheels, puncture. Like, in my unpopular opinion, that's a racing incident. I don't think it was Max's fault. I think that it was good, hard racing that was unfortunate that the tires popped. Like,
yeah, it like you said, it wasn't the biggest collision. Like, we've seen that happen numerous times. It was just, I guess, just the perfect mixture of whatever elements that led to that puncture. But yeah, out of all of the incidents that we saw yesterday, where, like you said, that dive bomb that Lando did, which was a page right out of Max's notebook, right? He learned that from Max. Out of Max, a couple laps ahead or before the actual incident happening, Max moving under braking, like Lando was saying
which he definitely
on the radio
was, but not in an unsafe. I saw quite a few other moving under brakings that were way more dangerous than what Max was doing. Like he definitely was. I'm not taking that away, but it wasn't, K-Mag level moving under braking.
Yeah. But the incident that caused the actual collision was probably the least egregious of all of the ones that were happening, but I feel like it had to come to a crescendo like that. It was building up every lap. It was getting more and more. And, Lando at the end there, Lando had the pace. Lando was in a faster car at the moment, and he was the faster driver on track. So he was going to either get by or it was going to end like it did. And so I think with Max, there was no plan. Like you were not going to get by.
No,
that was not going to happen. So there was only death, basically.
I kind of like that about Max. I loved that in 2021. I think that there is a level of mutual respect, but there's also you're going to earn first place. I'm not giving it to you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I think people forget that Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, a lot of those champions are the exact same way. Lewis was, just as aggressive in 2021 to keep Max back there and do the things that he did. Like that's fun, good, clean racing. And I'm sorry, Lando, you've been battling it out with, Stockholm Syndrome Leclerc in 7th place. And there's some lovely mutual respect there, but it's hard at the top. And I don't blame him for not wanting to give it up.
Well, like you said, with Lando kind of blowing it out of proportion, to me, what I saw in the post-race interviews, you could see Lando was emotional, like almost to the point where he's like on the verge of tears. Now, whether that was heartache or anger or a combination of both, which it probably was.
Yep.
But I think it was the realization to him that, I think he really valued that friendship, but he's starting to realize now that you might have to put that aside if you want to win and you want to be that champion. And I think that Lando is, in his mind, he has finally made that shift. And so that's why I think that the rest of the season is going to get so spicy, because when they find themselves on the same piece of track, neither one of them are going to want to give. So I just keep thinking back to Lewis and Max in 21. How many tracks did they have incidents? They had Silverstone, which we're about to go to next week, which is going to be a great track for both of those cars. Probably. We had the huge incident with Max and Lewis there. We had the incident in, what was it, Monza or Imola, wherever he parked on top, or Max wound up on top of Lewis. And it was just building to this crescendo at the end of the season. And I think another part of that with Max and why he's being so aggressive is, he's leading the championship, but he's 70 something points.
He's not that far ahead.
14 races left. And I mean, if the way that McLaren's looking, it's going to Lando's going to start chopping that down. All it takes is one DNF from Max, and all of a sudden that point gap is coming down considerably. So man, it's awesome. I'm pumped. I'm
excited for it. Like to me, the funny thing about it that I keep trying to wrap my head around is kind of like you said, like Lando's having this realization that when you put the helmet on, you aren't friends anymore. It's like, why are you just now having that realization? Like most people on that track are already, helmet goes on and it's a one-man show. Like it's funny to me. I do think Lando was emotional, and I do think he really values that friendship, which is incredible, but also it's Formula One.
I think Lando thought he was different. I think he thought that, I can have, my cake and eat it too. We can be friends, but also really fierce competitors. But it's not. It has never happened in the past, and it's not going to happen now. So
no.
I think, like I was texting you last night, I was like, do you think Max texted him? And, I think the way I look at it is I feel like Max is the type that doesn't really read social cues well. So I imagine he sent I imagine the text was like, "Oh, good race, huh? LOL," or something like that. And Lando's just sitting there just crying.
Well, don't they ride on the same jet together? So I'm sure there was an awkward conversation if Lando was buying himself a ticket or if he was getting on the jet with Max.
Max is like, "Where are you?" Lando's at the airport waiting in the security line. Oh man. But the crazy part is that this is obviously the highlight of the race and what everybody's talking about, but it was actually a decent race. Like there was battles going on. The Alpine guys, man, the battle that they had was getting close. I was waiting to see where that was going to go, because that lasted for multiple laps.
I liked how the commentators were even like basically talking about the feud between Ocon and Gasly. They're like, they grew up together, they played nice for a year, but they hate each other, and it's out in the open now, and everyone's like talking about it. And you're like, man, I haven't heard commentators like They always have played nice and been like, they've mended things are good. And this race, they're like, those two hate each other, and this is getting spicy. You're like, damn, all right.
I think it was Alex Jakes who's like, they faked it for a year.
I loved the Haas battle. And when K-Mag and Hulk got together, and K-Mag's engineer came over and said, hey, we need to manage the tires. And K-Mag said, well, is Nico managing his tire? And he was like, everybody's managing tires. And Nico went, fuck that. And took off.
Man, that's awesome too. And I think what makes these so interesting now is, so with Haas, you've got Nico, who's obviously leaving the team next year. K-Mag doesn't know what he's going to be doing. Then over in Alpine, you got Ocon, who's obviously leaving the team next year. Gasly, who's there to stay. So it's like you've got one guy who just doesn't give a damn, and the other one that's like trying to play maybe the team game.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's how aggressive do you want to be? It's like you'd obviously on one end of the table, you don't want to hurt the car if you're the guy that's staying or trying to earn your spot. But if you're the other guy, Ocon or Nico, who gives a damn? Like just throw caution to the wind at that point. And Nico, man, Nico drove one hell of a race this weekend.
I mean, he beat a Red Bull on merit. We'll talk about that later, I'm sure, but that's going to be somebody in a zero column.
Yeah, man, Nico is driving the hell out of that car.
He is. He did an awesome job. Both of them did. I mean, K-Mag got 8th place and Nico got 6th place. Like, best points finish for Haas. The car looked good and quick, too. Like, it wasn't blowing its tires off. It looked like a midfield car.
It did. I think the official stat was this weekend's. I think it was just yesterday's point haul equaled their entire point haul of 2022 essentially. So, or 2023.
It's crazy. A lot of good things. We had to talk about Yuki Tsunoda's fine.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so why don't you run us through what happened with Yuki for those that didn't see, because it wasn't widely publicized.
No, it was. I had to Google what he said. Yuki Tsunoda. It was during sprint quali, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Because I didn't even hear it. Like, it wasn't all that publicized or anything. I just saw that Yuki Tsunoda got a $40,000 fine for something that he said over the radio that, you know, was outside of FIA guidelines or regulations. And so I went and Googled what it is. He called a couple of the drivers fucking retards.
Like, Yuki, that's a hard R. You can't say that. You can't drop that anymore.
And the thing I liked best about it was his apology that he tweeted was totally playing the language barrier card. Like, I didn't know what that word meant fully. Like, yes, you did. Don't pull that. Yes, you did.
He's like, as soon as I found out what it meant, I felt so bad. It's like, come on, Yuki, you knew what the hell you were saying. But I mean, of course, he's got that convenient little language barrier card.
Yes, so. I thought that was hilarious. And then other radio things was Toto almost making George Russell crash when Lando and Max took themselves out. He was coming down to turn 3 and heavy braking, 200 miles an hour, like hardest braking zone, and apparently came over screaming into the mic, "Russell, you can do this, you can win!" And about threw him off his braking zone.
So I was reading a thing just this morning where Toto was saying in his 12 years of being team principal or whatever, that's the most embarrassing thing that he's done, and he's like apologizing for doing it. Because I mean, we all know how George is when he's under pressure. He's just one little moment away
from the wall.
Exactly. And so that's the last thing he needs is the Terminator coming over the radio yelling in his ear as he's coming up to a breaking point.
Dude, what a weekend. I mean, the sprint race was boring. There was, the Oscar Lando situation was pretty entertaining, how Lando and Max were battling it out and Oscar got ahead of Lando and then they couldn't pass each other. And I'm not all that surprised there wasn't team orders, but Oscar's definitely not as fast in race trim as Lando is, but that was kind of entertaining. But the race delivered.
The race definitely delivered. But the one thing about the sprint, though, is once Piastri got past Norris, I was on track for an entire prediction, getting my entire sprint race prediction correct. And freaking Piastri had to get by Norris. I was waiting for the team orders, and it never came, and he just ruined it all, blew it all out the water. I was that close to getting a clean sweep in the predictions there.
You need it too.
I do need it. Oh man. Okay. Before we move on though, let's also talk about Danny Rick, 250th Grand Prix. And finally he's out there. A lot of, speculation again, which I'm sure is tough for a driver to keep hearing all this, like, oh, he's going to be out of the car. He's not going to last any longer, but he put in a solid weekend, got some solid points, outperformed Yuki pretty much all weekend almost.
I think he lost to him in the sprint. They're in the same spot. Yeah, Yuki was 13th, Danny was 14th in the sprint. So, but yeah, he had a great weekend. It's hard though. Like, I feel like we're making excuses for him. It's like, hey, Danny, you got 9th place. Good job. Yeah. Look at you having a good weekend. I'm so proud of you. It's like,
but if you look at the car, though, I mean, the car
you're making more excuses for him. You're making more excuses for him.
I don't care. I'm going to make those excuses for him. That car sucks. It's not his fault.
It shouldn't suck. They've got the big brother team that should just give them the RB19. Basically, I know they can't.
They need to just do that at this point because that car is not. It's very inconsistent. Is one thing I've been noticing.
Yeah, and that update package did not go as planned.
No, not at all.
So let's talk about heroes and zeros. I think we're going to hit a lot of the other highlights from this weekend.
All right. How about I don't know who went last time. So you want to start off with your zeros?
Checo Perez. He lost on merit to Nico Hulkenberg and a Haas. And you're in the RB20. So, there's that. 2, Max Verstappen is battling with Lando, which slows you down, crashes with Lando, trundles 3/4 of the way around a track on 3 tires, extra pit stop, 10-second time penalty, comes out and still beats Perez by 17 seconds. He outqualified Perez by 1.3 seconds. Like,
yeah,
bro.
So I know that he had some damage to his car, but race pace aside, he was outqualified. He was outperformed handedly all weekend. It shows, it's like, I don't know if Red Bull, like I talked about last time, if they have buyer's remorse right now. Like Checo he's not doing enough. I don't think. He's
not doing. I mean, if we look back to like 2021, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas was definitely the number 2 driver behind Lewis, but Valtteri was there to pick up the wins that Lewis couldn't. We have George Russell picking up the wins that Max can't win at this point in a car that's not nearly as fast as the Red Bull. Like I'm not expecting Checo to be awesome in the car and winning the races, but you're fighting with Haas.
He needs to be there at least. Yeah, Checo, he's I don't know, man. I don't understand the re-signing so early, and I know Red Bull contracts are flimsy as is. They don't give a damn about it. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't think Checo's doing nearly enough. He's never there. It's always a one-horse show with Red Bull. It's always Max by himself, and Checo's in the midfield somewhere. So I would not be surprised to see that's a little bit of movement there. I don't know if he's going to be able to see out that contract.
He's in 5th place in the driver standing, behind Carlos Sainz and Leclerc. He's behind both the Ferraris, which might be like the 4th fastest car. I think Mercedes is passing Ferrari at this point. They're
and
kind
Carlos set out for an entire race too.
Yeah, like this is just bad, Checo. Bro, Sauber.
Oh my God! Again, you see, you just can't. There's no good points. I had them pegged for getting some points this weekend. And no, it didn't happen.
Ended up in 16th and 17th. The only ones behind him were Alonso and Logie Bear, which my third zero is Logie Bear because sweet Jesus.
That was bad.
And I understand there was some front wing damage from Lance Stroll. But you're just the usual suspect. You were lapped twice. You're the only driver to be lapped twice. Like, I made a joke about Sauber having a 20-second pit stop and still coming out in front of Logan Sargent. Here we are. Like, God.
Yeah, that's another one, man. Like we said, I tried to stick behind him for so long, but he's just not. Like, just do something.
He's nowhere. I mean, I cannot believe Williams still has him in the seat.
I know it's baffling.
He's not improving. He's not doing good. He's not doing anything. I'd bring up an academy kid and be like, your turn. Cause good God, he ain't doing it. Like what's the worst that's going to happen? He's gonna get last place every race. Good grief.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. But yeah, Sauber, Checo, and Logan Sargent. Boo.
Okay. So I have very similar zeros to you. I have Logan Sargent and I have Sauber on here, or Steak. But my other one is, it's kind of I'm going to go ahead and say, I was going to pinpoint one, but now that I'm thinking about everything that happened, I'm going to lump it all into a whole, and it's going to sound kind of weird, but I'm going to say Red Bull as a whole. And the reason I'm saying Red Bull as a whole is because there was failures on 3 different levels. And what I mean by that is you had Checo Perez, bad weekend, like you said, he was battling with Haas's. I understand he had a hole in his side pod, but that came from some damage that was partly his fault to begin with anyways.
Yep.
So Checo Perez. Then we've got a kind of controversial, probably, Max Verstappen. He was going to be my only 0, but I'm lumping them all in, and I'll tell you why in a second. Max Verstappen, I put him I blame him for that incident with Lando.
Of course that caused you do.
Them both to go out. I'm a Lando Norris fan. I don't care. There might be some bias, but you cannot convince me that was not 100% Max's fault. Max knew that he was out there. Max tried to squeeze him, and Max basically, like you said, reverted to a Max of old. And the way I look at it is like, everybody's like, oh, Max is such a mature driver now. I think about it like a fight, right? You can learn all the technique you want to learn, but as soon as you get punched in the nose, you're going to go back to what you know, and it's going to be a street brawl at that point. And that's what I think is happening with Max.
What's the number one rule of a fight?
What's that? There's no
win.
rules?
Win.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the number one rule.
So Max Verstappen, I'm lumping him into the whole thing too. And the other one, the reason why Max was put in that position was they had a very uncharacteristically slow pit stop. Red Bull never. That's the one main. You got Max Verstappen and you got their pits. They're always consistent. You can always count on them. They had a 6.5 second pit stop. The left rear tire had an issue coming off. Max went into the pits with 7.5 seconds gap to Lando. Came out of the pits and Lando was like a 1.5 seconds behind him.
Yep.
And so at that point, Lando smelled it. He could smell it, and he went for that win. And
I can't believe Max threw his pit crew under the bus afterwards, saying they had such a bad pit stop. I was like, damn, bro.
Hey, that's one thing about Max. He doesn't pull any punches. Nope. He's going to say it how it is. So, I mean, I respect that. But yeah, I put Red Bull as a whole there because they had 3 different levels of failures: Max, Checo, and the pits.
Yeah. And I think they're almost Alpine-esque of the drama behind the scenes in the leadership. I think that going to overflow at some point. Not yet. I think it's coming.
Well, I mean, we've already got Newey leaving, largely, rumored because of the whole Christian Horner thing, and that isn't gone. Max Verstappen's dad, Jos Verstappen, popping off again, talking about how he's done with Horner, and there's a lot of negativity and a lot of noise behind the scenes at that Red Bull team.
There is. All right, what do you got for your heroes?
All right, heroes. I am going to split up my boys here. I'm going to go my first hero, Oscar Piastri. He did what he always does. He's always good in the sprints. It's one thing about Oscar. He doesn't have to manage his tires, so he could just get out there and do what he needs to do. So he did great in the sprint. Then in the race, he went from P7 to P2. A couple more laps, I think he would have chased down George Russell. George isn't good under that kind of pressure. Yeah. So Oscar Piastri for one. The other one, I got to give it to the Haas team, man. The Haas team came to play this weekend. That was so awesome. I'm like watching all this chaos, and all of a sudden I look down the timing board, and I'm like, what the hell is the Haas guys doing there? And it wasn't just Nico. It was both of them.
It was on merit.
So on merit for the Haas team. So good for them. And my last hero, I'm going to go with the Max and Lando show. That battle, just lap after lap, just seeing that go down. It was so exciting.
Yeah.
It was so exciting. And regardless of what happened, I loved that entire battle. It was awesome to see. So I give that battle as a whole as one of my heroes.
Fair enough. My only overlap with you is Haas, and I think we've covered that. I'm going to give it to Mercedes as a whole. George Russell picked up the win. Lewis Hamilton was not far behind. He was in 4th place behind Carlos Sainz, but he had a little bit of a rough race in certain areas. But I mean, way to be not even the top 2 fastest cars. They're number 3 or 4, but making points, winning races, doing what Mercedes does. And I love to see it.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of, not a whole lot to talk about other than George winning it, but the fact that they are just there to pick up the pieces is why they are as good as they are.
Yeah, I've loved to watch their arc this season, where they started kind of nowhere, but now they're actually up there and they're sticking their nose in the show. So I'm happy to see them up there fighting.
Yeah. And then I'm going to go with the Austria rule change, putting those sand pits, not dealing with the track limits. That was a great call. Really improved the overall race compared to last year. And just, I was really happy we didn't have a ton of Stewart interference like we did. Speaking of Stewart interference, I totally was planning on talking about this earlier, but it just reminded me. Lando had a 5-second penalty for track limits right before he crashed. Is that going to be a 3-place grid penalty in Silverstone? He didn't take the 5 seconds.
Well, Max also had a 10-second penalty.
But he took the 10-second penalty. Lando retired.
You're right, he did.
Is that going to be a 3-place grid penalty in Silverstone?
I did not think about that. I guess we will see. I hope not, but we'll see.
Okay.
I didn't even think about it.
But yeah, that's I got to give it to Austria as a whole.
Yeah. Great weekend, man.
Yeah.
I want to go to this race. This solidified it.
And it's beautiful. All those helicopter shots. Yeah. I'm like, God, dog, that's a beautiful track. Like,
I would love to be there and experience this, but yeah, it's so gorgeous out there.
All right, let's do our predictions. See who comes out on top this weekend.
I was so close to victory.
Close. Yet so far. You're about as close to victory as Lando Norris was. Too soon?
On
pole.
Right, let's do it.
For the sprint. Max Verstappen.
I had Max. Yep, I had Max.
Yep, me too. P3, I had Checo Perez.
I had Oscar Piastri. Where did Perez finish on that one?
He finished in 8th place. He got one.
Okay. I had Oscar Piastri. So
P2, I had Norris. The correct answer was Piastri.
I had Norris there.
P1, also, Max Verstappen. I got that.
So did I.
My wild card was that Alpine was going to get points. That did not happen.
My wild card was 3 DNFs in the sprint.
Yeah, that
did not happen.
No. All right, to the race. We both had Norris on pole.
We did.
Yeah, that was the wrong answer. I had Lewis in 3rd place. The correct answer was Carlos Sainz.
I had Checo Perez in 3rd place.
That was definitely not it. I believe we both had Max in P2.
We did, yep.
Correct answer is Piastri.
Nope.
We had Norris winning the race, which we were almost right about, both of us. The correct answer was George Russell, which I don't think anyone saw coming at all.
Nobody had that one, yeah. Golly.
What was your
wild card?
Mine was a Ferrari DNF. And I want to hear yours loud and proudly, because we said we'd get double points if this came true.
Mine was that Steak would get their first points.
I got of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 12 points available, I got 2.
So did I. We really suck at this.
We do. Looking back over, I've got our score sheet pulled up. I'm leading 27-18 after this weekend. But looking back, I had one good weekend. I got 6 points in China. Everything else has been pretty terrible. We've been 2, 3, and 1 and 0 between the two.
For the next time, we need to calculate the total possible points and see where we're at, because I'm sure just to show how bad these are. But I mean, we're close, right? On the sprint, I had Verstappen, Norris, Piastri. It was Verstappen, Piastri, Norris.
Yep.
And so, like, we're in the ballpark, but
we had Norris and Max for the GP, which wasn't far off. Like it would have been had Norris not screwed it up.
Had Max not screwed it up. Watch your mouth. There's no way that you can convince me that was not Max Verstappen's fault.
I believe that statement. I don't think there's any way I can convince you. You're just wrong, though. It's okay. It's a racing
Oh, man.
incident.
Oh man, what a wild and crazy weekend. I am so pumped for Silverstone. I didn't even think about the potential for Lando getting a grid penalty. So I guess we'll find out soon if that's going to happen, because we saw that's why Checo unretired himself that one time. So it's a very real possibility it might happen, but I hope not, because Silverstone is guaranteed to be a strong track for both of those cars, and I want to see those guys get at it again.
I do too. Silverstone always delivers. It's not a sprint weekend. It's going to be all on the line on Sunday, and it's just such a great track. I'm so excited for this one.
Yeah, this is going to be a big one. Man, if you guys like this podcast, make sure and leave us a rating and a review. Check us out on Patreon too. We post a lot of our kind of behind the scenes stuff and some of the stuff that we can't really put out on the mainstream podcast over there. It's patreon.com/Formula America. And man, I don't know, Dylan, we got anything else from this weekend?
I'm sure we missed something, but
yeah,
that's all I got.
I'm still riding high. I'm gonna go watch the race replay again. But on that note,
stay classy, America.
We'll see you next time.